paintings from unlimited visions. Today we embark on an exciting historical journey as we take in the stunning Acropolis of Athens. Join us as we investigate the mysteries of this well-known historical fortification that honors Greek culture. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is home to several breathtaking monuments, like as the beautiful Parthenon and an abundance of archaeological artifacts. Subscribe to follow along as I delve deeper into antiquity. The ruins of numerous ancient structures with significant architectural and historical value, the most well-known of which is the Parthenon, may be found on the Acropolis of Athens, an ancient citadel perched on a rocky outcrop above the city of Athens, Greece. From the Greek terms akron, which means highest point, extremity, and polis, which means city, comes the word Acropolis. There are numerous acropolis in Greece, therefore the term Acropolis is a general one. In antiquity, the Acropolis of Athens was sometimes referred to as Cecropia, after the mythical serpent man Cecrops, who is thought to have been the first Athenian ruler. Although there is evidence that the hill was inhabited as early as the 4th millennium BC, the most significant buildings on the site, the Parthenon, the Propylaea, the Erechtheion, and the Temple of Athena Nike, were planned and built by Pericles c. 4954-29 BC in the 5th century BC, when gunpowder, which the Turkish rulers had been storing in the Parthenon, was struck by a Venetian bombardment and detonated. The Parthenon and the surrounding buildings suffered severe damage during the Venetian siege of 1687 during the Mauryan War. Early establishments. The Acropolis, which has a surface area of roughly 3 hectares 7.4 acres, is situated in the city of Athens on a flat-topped rock that rises 150 m 490 ft above sea level. Attica has been home to people from the early Neolithic period, which is shown by artifacts that date to the Middle Neolithic era 6th millennium BC. There is substantial probability that in the late Bronze Age, a Mycenaean megaron palace existed upon the hill. All that remains of this megaron is most likely a single limestone column base and fragments of many sandstone steps. A cyclopean huge circuit wall, measuring 760 meters in length, up to 10 meters in height, and 3.5 to 6 meters in thickness, was built not long after the palace. This wall would be the principal barrier protecting the Acropolis from the end of the Helladic 13001200 BC to the 5th century. The wall was constructed with 2 parapets made of big stone blocks that were sealed with emplekton, an earthen mortar. The wall adheres to the natural contours of the land, following traditional Mycenaean customs. Its gate, facing south, was positioned obliquely, with a parapet and tower overhanging the incomer's right side to aid in defense. On the north side of the hill, there were 2 smaller approaches that involved narrow, steep steps carved out of the rock. It is believed that Homer, when he speaks of the strong-built house of Erechtheus Odyssey 7.81, is alluding to this defense. An earthquake at the northeastern edge of the Acropolis produced a fracture sometime before the 13th century BC. This fissure stretched for some 35 meters until it reached a soft marl substrate where a well had been excavated. For a part of the Mycenaean period, an intricate set of steps was constructed, and the well functioned as a vital, safe source of drinking water during sieges. Ancient Acropolis. Up until the Archaic era, hardly much is known about the Acropolis' architectural appearance. The location was under the authority of Cylon in the 7th and 6th centuries BC when the Cylonian insurrection failed, and twice by Pisistratos in attempted coups d'état meant to take governmental power. Pisistratos constructed an entrance gate or propylaea in addition to the hecatompedon that will be discussed later. However, it appears that the largest water spring, the Clepsydra, was incorporated into the Anipolon, a 9-gate wall that surrounded the Acropolis hill at its northwest base between 570 and 550 BC. A temple was built in honor of the city's tutelary goddess Athena Polias. Many relics from this Doric limestone building remain. It is known as the Bluebeard Temple Parthenon, German for original Parthenon, or primitive Parthenon, hecatompedon, Greek for 100-footed H architecture, or Bluebeard Temple, named for the pedimental 3-bodied man serpent sculpture whose beards were painted dark blue. It is unknown if this temple supplanted an earlier one or was only a holy area or altar. It is likely that the hecatompedon was constructed in the location of the Parthenon. The Pisistratids constructed yet another temple, the Old Temple of Athena, also known as the Archaios Neos ancient temple between 529 and 520 BC, situated between the Parthenon that still stands and the Erechtheion. This temple dedicated to Athena Polias was constructed on the Dorpfeld foundations. The Archaios Neos was demolished in the 480-479 BC Second Persian invasion of Greece as part of the Achaemenid devastation of Athens, but since the Delian League's treasure was moved into its opisthedomos, the temple was most likely rebuilt in 454 BC. Given that Xenophon records that the ancient Athena temple was set on fire, it is possible that the temple was destroyed by fire in 406-405 BC. In his description of Greece from the 2nd century, Pausanias makes no mention of it. The Hecatompedon was demolished about 500 BC to create room for the older Parthenon, a larger structure sometimes called the pre-Parthenon or early Parthenon. Because of this, the Athenians chose to forego building the Olympian temple, which was associated with the tyrant Pisistratos and his sons, and instead built the older Parthenon using the Piraeus limestone that was supposed to be used for the Olympian. The south portion of the summit was leveled to make room for the new temple. Approximately 8,000 two-ton limestone stones were added, and a foundation that was at times 11 meters 36 feet deep was built. The remaining area was filled with soil that the retaining wall maintained in place. But following the triumphant Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, the design was changed and marble was utilized in its place. Pre-Parthenon refers to the building's limestone phase, and pre-Parthenon refers to its marble phase. In 485 BC, as Xerxes took the throne in Persia and war became certain, work on the project was put on hold to conserve resources. When the Persians stormed the city in 480 BC, the older Parthenon was still being built. The ancient temple and almost everything else on the rock were destroyed, in addition to the building being set on fire and looted. The Athenians adopted numerous architectural elements from the incomplete temple, such as the unfluted column drums, triglyphs, metopes, etc. once the Persian crisis had passed, into the recently constructed northern curtain wall of the Acropolis, where they are still visible today and functioned as a notable war memorial. The demolished location was free of debris. Several deeply excavated trenches on the hill were used ceremoniously to bury statuary, cult items, religious offerings, and irreparable architectural elements. These pits also served as a convenient fill for the artificial plateau built around the classical Parthenon. By 1890, this Persian debris had become the most richly deposited archaeological find yet made on the Acropolis. The Periclean Construction Initiative. Following their victory at Eurymedon in 468 BC, Siemon and the Mysticals commanded the restoration of the Acropolis' northern and southern walls. During the era known as Athens' Golden Age, 460-430 BC, Pericles ordered the reconstruction of the majority of the city's main temples, among them the Parthenon. The rebuilding was the work of two renowned architects, Callicrates and Ictinus, as well as an Athenian sculptor named Phidias, partially constructed upon the ancient propylaea of Pisistratos. Menesicles began construction of the propylaea in 437 BC. The propylaea is a colossal gate located at the western end of the Acropolis, with Doric columns made of Pentelic marble. With two wings and paintings by Polygnotus adorning the northern one, these colonnades were nearly completed in 432 BC. Building on the modest Ionic temple of Athena Nike in Pentelic marble with tetrastyle porches, which preserved the fundamentals of Greek temple architecture, began about the same time south of the propylaea. Following a pause brought on by the Peloponnesian War, the temple was completed between 421 and 409 BC during Nicias' peace period. The exquisite temple of Erechtheion, built in Pentelic marble between 421 and 406 BC, was constructed using a sophisticated plan that took into consideration the region's unusually uneven terrain and the necessity to avoid many shrines. There are 6 Ionic columns lining the entryway, which faces east. The temple is unique in that it has 2 porches. One is supported by Ionic columns on the northwest corner, and the other is to the southwest and is adorned with enormous caryatids or female figurines. The altars of Hephaestus and Erechtheus brother Vutos were located in the western portion of the temple, which served the cult of the ancient monarch Poseidon Erechtheus. The eastern portion of the temple was devoted to Athena Polias. The original layout of the interior, which was repeatedly reconstructed after being devastated by fire in the 1st century BC, is not well understood. The temples of Athena Polias, Poseidon, Erechtheus, Cecrops, Hers, Pandrosos, and Aglaros, with its core porch of the Maidens or Caryatids balcony, were among the holy precincts that were started at the same period. The sanctuary of Artemis Broronia, also known as the Broronion, was located between the Parthenon and the Athena Nike temple. Artemis is a bare-headed goddess who is revered in the Broron Dame. Pausanias reports that the temple contained a statue of Artemis by Praxiteles from the 4th century BC and a wooden statue, or exoenon, of the goddess. Among the holy precincts that were established at the same time were the temples of Athena Polias, Poseidon, Erechtheus, Cecrops, Hers, Pandrosos, and Aglaros, with its core porch of the Maidens or Caryatids balcony. It was situated between the Parthenon and the Athena Nike temple, and was also called the Broronion or Sanctuary of Artemis Broronia. In the Broron Dame, Artemis is a bare-headed deity that is highly respected. According to Pausanias, the temple had a wooden statue of the goddess known as a Zaxoanon, as well as a statue of Artemis by Praxiteles dating from the 4th century BC. The Chalcotheke, the Pandrosion, Pandion's sanctuary, Athena's altar, Zeus Peleus' sanctuary, and the circular temple of Roma and Augustus from Roman times are other monuments that have left nearly nothing visible to this day. Roman and Hellenistic eras. Many of the current structures in the Acropolis region were restored in the Hellenistic and Roman eras to address deterioration caused by time and occasionally warfare. A number of foreign monarchs were honored with monuments, most famously the Attalid kings of Pergamon, Eumenes in front of the Propylaea and Attalos in front of the NW corner of the Parthenon. During the early Roman Empire, these were rededicated to Agrippa and either Augustus or Claudius uncertain. Additionally, Eumenes built a stoa on the south slope that resembled Attalos in the agora below. The final notable prehistoric building on the rock summit was supposed to be the Temple of Roma and Augustus, a modest, spherical structure located roughly 23 meters from the Parthenon during the Julio-Claudian era. At about the same time, a sanctuary was established where the archons dedicated to Apollo upon taking office in a cave beside the one on the north slope that had been dedicated to Pan since the classical period. On the south slope, the Roman Herodes Atticus constructed his magnificent amphitheatre, also known as an Odeon, in 161 AD. A century after being destroyed by the invading Herulaeans, it was rebuilt in the 1950s. The Acropolis was once again used as a fortress when repairs were made to its walls in the 3rd century in response to a fear of a Herulaean invasion. The Byle Gate was built to restrict entry in front of the Propylaea. Latin, Byzantine, and Ottoman eras. The Parthenon served as a church devoted to the Virgin Mary throughout the Byzantine era. The Parthenon served as the city's cathedral and the Propylaea as a component of the ducal palace during the Latin Duchy of Athens. The Acropolis served as the administrative hub of the city. The Frankopiagos, or Frankish Tower, a massive addition, was destroyed in the 1800s following the Ottoman conquest of Greece. The Parthenon was transformed into a mosque, the Erechtheum became the governor's private harem, and the Propylaea served as the Turkish army's garrison headquarters. During the Venetian siege of the Acropolis in 1687 during the Moraine War, major damage was done to the buildings. Artillery struck the Parthenon, which was being utilized as a magazine for gunpowder, causing significant damage. The Acropolis saw a great deal of human activity in the years that followed, and it was home to several Byzantine, Frankish, and Ottoman buildings. A mosque with a minaret inside the Parthenon was the main attraction during the Ottoman era. During the Greek War of Independence, the Acropolis was under siege twice by the Greeks in 1821 to 1822, and once by the Ottomans in 1826 to 1827. The Greeks constructed a new bulwark in honor of Odysseus Androutsos between 1822 and 1825 to guard the newly found Klepsydra spring, which ended up being the fortress's only source of fresh water. Greece on its own. To try to return the monument to its original shape, cleansed of all subsequent additions, the majority of features that came from the Byzantine, Frankish, and Ottoman periods were removed from the site after independence. In 1843, the Parthenon Mosque was destroyed, and in 1875, the Frankish Tower. German historian Wolf Seidel wrote in his book Bavarians in Greece that Leo von Klenz, a neoclassicist architect from Germany, was in charge of restoring the Acropolis in the 19th century. Constructed in the latter part of the 1800s, the old Acropolis Museum housed a selection of antiquities from the Acropolis. Nazi German war flag was flown over the Acropolis by German soldiers in 1941, marking the start of the Axis conquest of Greece. In one of the first acts of resistance, Manolis Glazos and Apostolos Santos would take it down. Greek Prime Minister Georgios Papandreou celebrated the country's freedom from the Nazis by arriving on the Acropolis in 1944. Remains of archaeological excavations. The propylaea, a colossal gateway, served as the entryway to the Acropolis. The little temple of Athena Nike is located south of the entryway. The Parthenon, also known as the Temple of Athena Parthenos, stands in the center of the Acropolis. The Erechtheium is a temple located north of the Parthenon and east of the entrance. The ruins of the historic, but sometimes altered, Theatre of Dionysus are located south of the platform that tops the Acropolis. The partially restored Odeon of Herodes Atticus is just a short distance away. The Acropolis Museum, located 280 meters from the Parthenon on the southern slope of the same cliff, is home to all of the priceless antique relics. Thank you all for joining me on this journey through the mesmerizing Acropolis of Athens. I hope you found this exploration as enriching and awe-inspiring as I did. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content. Until next time, keep exploring and embracing the wonders of our world. Farewell.